Hey guys, I am here with Terry Donnelly from the Hill Street Beverage Company. His company is one of the first to be coming to market in Canada with a cannabis-infused beverage, so we're very excited to talk to him about that as well as all the other things he's got going on. Terry, how you doing today?
Fantastic. Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks
So,
for having me on. It's great, a great pleasure to be here with you guys.
yeah, we're happy to have you. So, why don't you start off by just introducing your company and letting us know exactly what sort of products you make and what it is you do?
Sure. So, as you'd said, I'm the chairman and CEO of Hill Street Beverage Company. We're a publicly traded company. Our ticker symbol is beer. We're traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and we currently make products like this, which is the Hill Street Craft Brewed Lager. It's the world's first alcohol-free craft beer, and also the most award-winning. If you see all the little medals on the bottom, those are actually actual medals we've won around the world.
Nice.
We also make great alcohol-free wine as well, like these two guys, which is our Brut Rosé and our Cabernet Sauvignon. The Cab Sauv was actually the very first alcohol-free wine ever to win a double gold medal at the San Francisco International Wine Competition, which is the biggest and most prestigious wine competition in the world. So we started off down this path of realizing that the government and the regulators would never allow alcohol and cannabis to be in the same product. And so we were at the time making alcohol-free products that were absolutely delicious tasting and disrupting those categories. We're disrupting the alcohol-free beer and wine marketplace with products that actually are delicious to drink and full flavored and great tasting products. And so we realized that that's the perfect starting point for cannabis infused products. And all we needed to do was figure out a way how to get the cannabis into the beverage without screwing up the taste. And so we began a process to research different technologies that were out there. Ended up with a partnership with a biotech company based in Kelowna, a company called Lexx Area Biosciences. And they've got over 60 patents on a platform and a process to allow us to take full spectrum cannabis oil. So that's all of the major and minor cannabinoids, plus the flavonoids, plus the terpenes. So it's the kind of same experience as smoking a joint, and to take that full spectrum oil and to turn it into an odorless and tasteless powder that's water soluble that we can put into our beverages on a very prescriptive level of dosing, so to very accurate dosage levels. And it turns our great tasting alcohol-free products into cannabis-infused products that get you a nice buzz, but without any of the toxicity and any of the empty calories that come with consuming alcohol.
Yeah, that's
So
great. That sounds like a really nice alternative, like someone being at a party that doesn't necessarily want to drink beer can go ahead and drink one of these beverages. So you're kind of still,
yeah,
in the vibe without having to ingest alcohol.
absolutely. And you don't have to smoke anything,
Right.
right? Like there's no smoke, there's no inhalants, there's none of the, like, our bodies aren't designed to smoke stuff. We're designed to breathe fresh, clean air.
Right.
Uh, but we are designed to drink healthy beverages. And so when you take the alcohol out of these beverages, they actually become almost health products. They're literally like superfoods. You get all of the resveratrol and antioxidants and the flavonoids that are in the wine that are good for your heart and good for your kidneys and good for your blood pressure. Because you took the alcohol out, it's no longer carcinogenic. It no longer causes liver disease and kidney disease and arthritis and gout and everything else that's negative that comes with alcohol. And when you add the cannabis, it becomes an intoxicant, but it's actually an intoxicant that has all kinds of benefits because it's made from cannabis, which is a largely beneficial ingredient. And so there's no hangover. There's no overconsumption concern. You'll never be able to drink too much. You'll never overconsume and pass out or vomit.
Right.
any of those kinds of things, um, and no hangover. And then the cool thing about this tech is that you feel the onset in about 2 minutes. You get the full onset in about 15 minutes. The intoxicating effect wears off after about 90 minutes, and it's out of your bloodstream in about 3 hours. And so it's hugely disruptive because most edibles, like gummies and brownies and those kinds of things, they take anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours to
Right.
onset.
Y-
And then they're in your bloodstream for 8 to 24 hours. So, like, technically, you could go to a party, eat a gummy, and the next night on the way home from work, you still have enough THC in your system that you could be arrested driving home from work the next day, right?
Yeah.
So our products, largely solve all of those problems, and they do so by providing you the same format as a nice cold beer or a bottle of wine that you can share with friends, that you can sit around a dinner table, hopefully in a restaurant one day, and enjoy a social beverage, which is something mankind has done for 10,000 years, and have all of the complexity and nuanced taste pleasure that comes with a fine wine or a great craft beer, but do it and get a nice little buzz on at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. So what is the milligram dosage per drink in terms of the THC
So
content?
the government, their regulations kind of say you shouldn't have more than 2.5 milligrams per serving.
Okay.
They've said you can have up to 10 milligrams per serving, or per unit. So this is a unit, but this is also a unit.
Okay.
This is one serving, that's 5.
Yeah.
So the government has said 10 milligrams a unit, right? So we've actually decided we're going to do about 2 milligrams a serving. So this is 5 servings, and it'll hold 10 milligrams, and it'll be about 2 milligrams a serving. This will be probably about 2.5 milligrams of serving, per serving per unit. Like in the can, it'll be 2.5 milligrams, and that's one of the other really, really cool features about this tech. Is most people who've done edibles, they kind of go, I need 40 milligrams. I've had some people say, I need 100 milligrams to
Yeah.
feel anything, right?
Absolutely.
And my response to that is, okay, well, first of all, you may think that's true, but that's not true, because your liver is eliminating 90 to 95%
Okay.
of the THC that you've consumed. So even though you've absorbed 20 milligrams or 50 milligrams or 100 milligrams, only 5 to 10% of that is actually getting into your bloodstream through your liver. So if you'd had a 20 milligram dose, you probably only felt 2 milligrams. And that's one of the beauties of the tech, is that they actually have about a 97% bioavailability rate. So your body is actually absorbing 97% of the THC that we give you. So when we give you 2 milligrams, you actually get all 2 milligrams in your bloodstream. And so it feels like a 20 milligram dose.
Okay, nice. So why don't you speak a little bit about Lexx Area, they were called, the company you were
Sure.
working with? So
Yeah.
how did they come on board and kind of help you develop the product?
Well, we actually found them, because as I said, we were creating these great tasting beverages, and we needed to figure out a way to infuse them with cannabis. So I just got on the Google, right?
Yeah.
And okay, who's doing cannabis infusion? There's got to be, a limited number of companies that actually know what they're doing. Turned out there's over 20 different companies at the time that we looked at. We did a deep dive on half a dozen of them, actually tested products and tested formulations and those kinds of things. And we discovered these guys from Kelowna, this company called Lexx Area. And they had been doing it with a company out of Colorado called Nuka Chocolates.
Okay.
Nuka has a brand called 1906 Chocolates. And 1906 is the highest rated, highest customer satisfaction chocolate brand in the cannabis industry in the United States. And they were using Lexx Area to do their infusion. And so what we discovered about Lexx Area at the time is that almost all of the companies out there, there's a lot of ways that you can put cannabis into a liquid and make it water soluble.
Okay.
There's very few ways that you can take that cannabis and make it odorless and tasteless.
Right.
And that to us was actually number one on the list. So everybody else was like, well, we can mask that taste with sugar. We can mask that taste with chocolate. We can mask the flavor with coffee. There's all kinds of things. Or cannabis is actually a cousin of hops. So if I put the cannabis in a beer, it kind of blends with the hops and it still tastes pretty good, right? You can
Right.
kind of, it's the same kind of taste and aroma between cannabis and hops. So for us, like, we're doing this, right? So that's a Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
That's a very nuanced, very clear, and if you look at the clarity of the product, which you can see in the video, right?
Yep.
So very clear, very nuanced, very light, subtle flavors, and even the slightest hint of cannabis aroma or taste is going to destroy that product.
Sure. That's very fascinating.
For us, that was the single most important thing, is we needed it to be odorless and tasteless.
Right. So then you can kind of add your own flavors to it from there.
Right. And so everybody that we talked to, there was some hint. There was some aftertaste. There was some residual effect of the fact that this product now had cannabis in it. And it's a tiny amount. Like if you actually look at how much we put into, this is 750 milliliters, right?
Yep.
The amount of liquid that is the cannabis infusion that goes into this bottle is 0.25 milliliters.
Okay.
Or 250 microliters.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's a tiny, tiny, tiny amount, but it's amazing how much taste cannabis actually has. It's amazing how impactful even that small amount of aroma can have on a product. So it was amazing meeting the Lexx Area guys, testing out their product, proving it for ourselves, actually doing stability testing, making sure there's no coagulation or separation. That's one of the main problems with a lot of the products that are available in the States, is especially on a beer. If you took an acid and you actually dissolved the aluminum that this can is made from, there's a plastic coating inside the can, and that prevents the beer from absorbing the cannabis, the aluminum taste. Well, that plastic coating basically acts as a magnet for almost all of the oil-based infusions, the nano-emulsions, where they take an oil and they nano-emulsify it into tiny particulates and put it in the liquid. So I've seen tests that are done on cannabis-infused beers in the U.S., and the amount of cannabis in the beer is 0%.
Wow.
And the reason why is it's all stuck to the can.
I see.
Right? It coagulates and literally sticks to the can.
Yeah.
And if you want to get the cannabis out of that beer you just paid $9 for, you've got to pop the lid off and take your finger and wipe it around the inside of the can and then lick your finger to get the cannabis oil out of the beverage. And it's because it's a fat, right? It's an oil.
Yeah.
And if you add oil and water, it becomes salad dressing.
Right.
Right? They don't blend.
Yeah.
So that's why this tech for us was super exciting. And it allows us to be able to formulate any beverage of any flavor and to have that beverage taste exactly like the formulation. So if I wanted to make a water that was cannabis infused, it's going to taste like water.
Sure.
It's not going to taste like bong water.
Right. Which nobody wants to drink, let's be honest.
Which nobody wants to drink.
Could you
could already drink that at home. You don't have to buy it from me.
Yeah, exactly. Could you maybe speak a little bit about any sort of regulatory challenges you came up against? How was it getting into that side of things? And I know you're working with a company called Cannabis Compliance Incorporated to kind of help you along that process. Have you faced any major challenges or hurdles in that realm?
Oh, that's the way to the description of what it's like to run a cannabis beverage company, which I used this analogy many times, and there's a couple of different analogies that I've used This one is particularly apropos for the regulatory framework. And I basically tell people that, imagine somebody gave you 10 million bucks and said, I want you to launch a professional sports team.
Okay.
And here's a ball. So I want you to hire all the players, outfit the team, build a stadium, build a facility where the game will be played. And the game starts in December of 2019. So we'll assume this is August of 2017.
Sure.
So August of 2017, bunch of investors gave me a mandate to build a cannabis beverage company. And it's kind of like launching a pro sports team, and the league launches sometime in late 2019.
Yep.
So you got to build a facility, hire all the players, buy all the equipment, take the ball, start running plays, and in July of 2019, we'll tell you what game it is.
Okay, so there's a lot of challenges and obstacles along the way, obviously.
You have no idea. Football or lacrosse or soccer or what it is, and you're up against somebody who's got $15 billion, not $10 million, right? So you got better funded competition, you've got all kinds of hurdles, you don't know what the rules of the game are, and you just got to hope you're making good decisions. So the biggest hurdle we faced was actually back in December when they published the draft regulations. We have a partnership with a company that's our largest shareholder actually and is an investor in our business. And they are a wine and beer packaging company. So they basically run packaging lines. And we fully expected as of December 21st of 2018 that we would use their packaging lines to package our facility, our products. It's a multi-million dollar. There's like a ton of investment that's gone into that building and all of the equipment and the expertise. And they've been successfully running a packaging business for 15 years. And on December 21st, we're going ahead with this plan. We've applied for our cannabis license on their building. We've purchased equipment to install, to do the infusion in their building on their production line. And on December 22nd, the government says you cannot package cannabis and conventional food and beverage products in the same building.
Wow. Yeah, I heard about that actually.
Yeah. So our whole plan of using that building out the window.
So you had to build a whole new facility. Is that what happened?
Well, we ended up actually buying a cannabis company and we'll use their facility. So we spent 16 million bucks buying a cannabis company in the middle of Saskatchewan. And it comes with 33,000 square feet of space for us to install our bottling and canning line. But we had to literally, at the time, we didn't own a bottling and canning line. We were going to use somebody else's.
Yeah.
So we had to go out and find a bottling and canning line, redo our cannabis application so that we could move it to a different address. That starts the process over again. Then we were looking, do we find a company that's already got empty space that we can just co-locate in that has a cannabis license? And so then, it got into negotiations with 30 different licensed producers over, partnering, joint venturing, co-locating, renting a chunk of square footage of their floor space, all these different permutations of some kind of commercial relationship, and finally decided, to hell with it, let's just buy our own place. So we ended up buying this company in Saskatchewan called One Leaf, which turned out to be the most extraordinary business decision we could have made. Because the team and the talent we got with that acquisition far outweighs the value of the building. But it kind of gets us into the business on schedule. We ended up with an extraordinary team of people that have joined our team. Every one of their employees is just absolutely world class. The partners there are unbelievable in terms of the skill set they bring. And it's a tremendously complementary skill set. Their team, we're really on the science, cultivation, intellectual property, and legal side of the business.
Right.
And those were all skills that we didn't have. And my team is sales, marketing, brand strategy, distribution, and product development and formulation, right? And those are all skills that they didn't have. And so you put the two together and suddenly you have a complete org chart. Like we now have all the skills we need to be successful in this market.
That's great.
And
So it sounds like you turned kind of what was a big challenge and a big obstacle into actually quite a big opportunity.
yeah, not only that, but this team had tremendous foresight. The two master growers that they have and the key partners in the business, they've actually been collecting cannabis cultivars for over 2 decades. So it's been sort of a passion project for them. They've collected over 700 unique cultivars of cannabis. Over 600 of them are not commercially available anywhere in the legal marketplace. And so we now have a portfolio of cannabis genetics that is literally unmatched in the industry. We have the ability to gene splice because of their science capabilities. We have the ability to gene splice cannabis to produce completely new hybridized cultivars of cannabis that generate predictable outcomes in consumers using our patented whole plant extract processing capabiliity.
That sounds
So
incredible. So for the layman such as myself,
yeah,
cultivar, is that essentially mean a strain?
yeah, it's a strain, right? But strains you kind of it's the common term, but the correct term is a cultivar.
Okay.
So there's a cultivar, there's a phenotype and a genotype and then ultimately varietals. But the cultivar is if you think of roses, right?
Yep.
Um, a red rose versus a yellow rose versus a variegated rose. Um, those are different cultivars of the rose plant, and they do represent different. They present different phenotypes, different genotypes, so that you can actually get different attributes out of the plant, different cannabinoids. The Israelis have identified about 480 known cannabinoids, but each plant only expresses somewhere between 100 to 150 of them.
Mm.
Right? So if you think of, this complex list of ingredients, you pick from 480, but each plant you only get to put 125 in,
Right.
and so you can now literally construct by gene splicing the different phenotypes of cannabis to be able to put them together to create the optimal, plant that you can cultivate and holistically turn into an input into a beverage. So I can make a beer that gives you a real feeling like you want to party.
Okay.
I,
Interesting.
I can make a Cabernet Sauvignon that gives you a feeling like you just want to sit back and relax.
Right.
I can make a champagne or a bubbly that makes you giggle and just want to laugh all the time.
Yeah.
And I can make a Sauvignon Blanc that has a built-in appetite suppressant that makes you want to chill out and just enjoy a lunch and not be as hungry. There's things that we can do around eliminating the memory fog that cannabis often causes for people. It's one of the most common negative attributes of
Yeah.
cannabis.
Right.
Dude, where did I put my keys?
Exactly. Exactly. Which we had a mishap with this morning, by the way, as our director misplaced his keys. It may or
Yeah.
may not have been marijuana influenced.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So is it causation or correlation? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So,
So there's all these different physiological outcomes that we can generate. And then, of course, from a regulatory standpoint, I can't mention any of that.
okay. Right. You
None of
mentioned.
that can be on my label. Right.
Right. Yes, due to the kind of the marketing and promotion regulations that are there. So
Exactly.
let's move into that in terms of where you guys are along in your process to bringing the product to market. Now, I know Health Canada's kind of officially, or the government's officially said that October 17th this year is supposed to be when edible cannabis products are legal. Are you thinking that you'll be able to get them out around that time, or is the process going to
No,
be delayed?
no, no one will get them out on October 17th.
Okay.
Um, so as of July 15th, you can apply for the amendment to your license to do edibles. So if you're a licensed producer as of July 15th, you push the button and make your application to do edibles. The category becomes legal on October 17th, so the edibles category allow you to have legal products on that date. And that's the date by which you can submit a product like this to Health Canada to say, here is my product. It's formulated according to this formulation. It's got this infusion. It's got this strain, this terpene content, this CBD THC ratio, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to give Health Canada 60 days notice of launching a product. And they, at any point in time in that 60 days or beyond, they can turn to you and say, we agree or we don't. So you can launch that product, or you got to take it off the market, or you can't launch it.
Right.
And most of the time, they don't give you any answer. There's no yes, there's only no. So you give them 60 days notice, and then you launch. And at any point in time, they can call you up and say, get rid of that. You know, we don't like that. Change this or change that. Recall the product, pull it off. And because Health Canada doesn't have a police force per se.
Okay.
They only have a complaint department.
Mm.
So they don't respond proactively to say you're doing it right. They don't go out looking for problems to say you're doing it wrong. They only respond to complaints.
So consumer complaints primarily?
Yeah, pretty much. Your competition complaining to Health Canada about you.
Oh, so that can happen as well.
Oh, of course, yeah. That's probably the number one channel.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense, although it does kind of suck. So when it comes to kind of overcoming all this, is Health Canada looking at having a process in the future, to your knowledge, where they can actually just give you the green light and say, okay, this is good to go? Or is it going to continue to be kind of this battle where you have to just put something out and do your own testing and make sure it is as advertised and that you don't get any complaints?
Yeah, pretty much that's the case.
That's going to be the case moving forward.
That's the case. Yeah, it's like they're I think it's going to take some political will to recognize that essentially now that cannabis is legal, the sky has not fallen in.
Right. Yeah.
So the moral fabric of society has not been torn asunder.
Right.
It's nothing happened. Like, we legalized cannabis, and what happened? Nothing, other than a lot of people didn't go to jail anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So I think once they realize, I have no problem with the dosage things. There's a lot of people complaining it's not enough dosage.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it because of the efficiency of our technology. And if you want more, drink another beer.
Sure.
Right? Have some more wine. Then you'll get more. Right? So you can at least manage. Like, you can't unconsume.
Yeah.
If you take too much in a serving, you can't undo that. You just got to wait it out. But you can always consume more.
Sure.
Right? And what we'll be doing is offering, this beer and this pre-roll. So you can have the pre-roll with the strain of cannabis that's in the beer.
Right.
And so if you want to have an integrated experience that you're not kind of mixing up your buzz by having two different types or by having alcohol and cannabis together, then we're probably the best option because we'll have the integrated strain in the beverage as well as the pre-roll that matches it. And again, we're not using an isolate or a distillate, so it's an integrated full spectrum, what they call the entourage effect, which is the most desired effect. It's how you feel when you smoke a joint.
Okay, the entourage effect. I haven't heard that before. Yeah,
the entourage effect is described because if you take a CBD isolate or a THC isolate, it's a distinct physical experience. And THC isolates are anxiety and stress inducing.
Yep.
Right? So it's not a good feeling. It's not, it's not joyful. It's not creative. Those, what we call modulated effects, where you take THC and you add the minor cannabinoids, and even more importantly, you add the terpenes, which is the aroma and the smell of cannabis comes from the terpene content. It's when you've blended all of that together, which is the feeling you get from smoking a joint. It's when you've blended all of that into an edible is when you recreate that experience. And then the second thing is when you consume a traditional edible with a medium chain triglyceride that it's blended with, like a coconut oil or a hydrogenated palm oil.
Yep.
Those edibles are processed by the liver, and it converts from a delta 9 THC, which is the feeling you get when you smoke pot, into an 11 hydroxy THC, which is that body stone you get from doing edibles,
Yeah.
right? Makes you want to just kind of chill out on the couch for the next 8 hours.
Sure.
Well, that's because your liver converted the THC into a different molecular format before your blood absorbs it. With us, all of the THC that you consume with our products is consumed via your GI system and your lymphatic system. So it doesn't actually get processed by the liver, so it stays as a delta 9 THC, which is how our beverages make you feel like you smoked a joint.
That's really fascinating. So I just want to touch really quickly on bringing the product to market. In terms of your marketing and promotion efforts, how are you going to make that happen while still adhering to all of the regulations that Health Canada puts on that?
Yeah, so the product ultimately, unfortunately, is going to look like toilet bowl cleaner.
Okay.
It's going to be that medicinal. I've got some here.
Okay, great.
So, it's going to look like that.
Right.
It's going to be that ugly label and, the formatting, the big radioactive symbol and your tiny little logo, it's going to be a terrible looking product. And that's going to be amplified onto this big bottle,
Sure.
right? Where you're going to have, the big black thing with a giant radioactive symbol and the warning, you'll die if you take this.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, that's just how it's going to be. So from a marketing standpoint, really what you're doing in cannabis marketing is you're just collecting age-gated audiences, right?
Yeah.
So everything you do has to be digitally driven, or it has to be traditional media in places where children can't see it.
Right.
So bars and restaurants that are 19 plus, movie theaters, those kinds of things. And unfortunately, the way the market is, you're up against extremely well-funded competition. Like Canopy has basically purchased all of the advertising inventory of Cineplex theaters for the next 5 years.
Wow.
They purchased all of the advertising inventory of the bar, washroom, urinal stall kind of ads, right? For the next 5 years. So you've got this incredibly dominant, exceptionally well-funded player who's going to dominate the major vehicles. And so really all you can do is build a direct one-to-one relationship with your consumer through your brand, through the experience, right? So we have our way of going to market that we think is our sort of best avenue. And so we're quite excited about what we think we are doing that is going to win. And certainly I think we're going to win on the taste of our product. When people taste, especially the beer and our wines, we were like, I think a great example this last week was the Lift and Company conference in Toronto. And so it's 20,000 people a day. It's a 4-day long conference, and it's the big show in the cannabis industry. And so you have guys like Aurora and Figure and JWC and the Jamaican Cannabis Company and Indiva and all these big players who spent like literally Organogram with their Edison brand. Their booth was in front of ours. And I sort of estimated their booth cost them $200,000.
Right.
For their trade show booth.
Sure. Yeah.
So, my booth was a 10 by 10 booth. And the total budget we spent on our entire booth was a very, very tiny fraction of what Edison spent on theirs. Right. And according to the media reports, we were one of the top 10 best booths at Lyft.
Oh, that's great.
Why is that? Because we were pouring wine.
Right. Yeah.
And people were like, holy mackerel, this is amazing tasting. And the thing is, it is amazing tasting. You taste this product and you'll never, you won't believe it's got no alcohol in it, but you'll also go, that's just an awesome beverage,
Yeah.
right? It's a complex fermented Syrah rosé that's an absolutely phenomenal product. Um, and my wife actually prefers it to champagne, right?
Yeah.
It's just a delicious product, and then it's going to have cannabis in it. And by the way, the cannabis infusion has zero impact on the aroma and taste. So exactly what it's going to taste
Right.
like is it just gets people super excited to be able to know that there's a product coming down the pipeline that isn't going to taste like bong water.
Yeah.
That doesn't have that oily, filmy kind of taste that comes from most cannabis beverages, especially in the U.S. The majority of them have kind of an oily texture, and that's from the nano emulsion of the cannabis oil. And so, it's just a super exciting thing, and the product speaks for itself. We're pretty pumped about what our prospects are going to be once consumers taste the product, and secondarily once they experience it. We've done our own tests, and it's an absolutely fantastic experience.
That's great. It sounds really amazing. I can't wait to try it myself, actually. I wanted to end on this. If there was like a few words of advice you could maybe give to a company who's entering, whether it be specifically the edible cannabis market or just getting involved in cannabis in general. Like I know it's a whole can of worms, and people are at different levels in their progression. But what are a few tips you might be able, or maybe one or two, some advice you'd give to somebody that maybe you wish you'd known when you kind of started this whole thing?
Well, I think probably the single most important thing is you can't shortchange the regulatory process. So it's going to take 2 to 3 times longer than you thought.
Right.
And it's going to cost you 5 times more than you budgeted.
Right.
So if you've ever renovated a house, and they say, when you renovate a house, whatever your budget is, double it, and then whatever your time frame is, double that. So twice as long and twice as much. In the cannabis world, it's even worse than that. It just takes a lot longer. It costs a lot more. But I think in the end, the thing that I think people should get excited about is that there's probably never going to be another product that will decriminalize, that will have as broad reaching and as beneficial an outcome on our society as cannabis. There's right now in the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, there's over 50,000 cannabis products that have been trademarked in the last 3 years. So now I want you to put that in context. If you go into a major overweighty store,
Yep.
Vancouver, okay, there's about 40,000 products in a large format overweighty store.
Right.
So you're talking 25% more products.
Right. Yeah.
All made from cannabis, right? All single-use plastics can be made from hemp.
Okay. Yeah.
All single-use plastics can be made from hemp, and they're all recyclable and they're all biodegradable. Road surface materials can be made from hemp. Concrete is made from hemp now. You can buy hempcrete, which lasts longer than concrete. It's more durable, more flexible than concrete. So 150 years ago, hemp and cannabis was the world's most valuable agricultural crop. You're looking at fabrics, shirts, sails, jeans, anything made from cotton can be made from hemp. That's a great source of protein. Hemp seeds are a phenomenal source of protein.
Yeah.
And then you look at cannabis, the intoxicant, and you compare it to alcohol. And so when you actually understand, we love alcohol, and I personally love alcohol. I got a wine cellar in my basement. I've got over 400 bottles of wine in my basement right now. And I personally can't wait till I can replace all of those with cannabis-infused versions of that wine. Because alcohol is a class 1 carcinogen.
Right.
It's directly linked as a cause of 23 forms of cancer. It causes liver disease. It's the third leading cause of death from liver disease. It causes kidney disease. It causes high blood pressure. It causes gout. It causes arthritis. It causes Alzheimer's disease. It causes multiple sclerosis. It causes Parkinson's. It's directly linked to 10% of all violent crime. It is the cause of 50% of all hospital visits annually in Canada. It is the cause of 15,000 deaths a year in Canada alone, and 5% of all deaths worldwide annually are directly attributed to alcohol consumption.
Right. And yet we live in a world where those companies, alcohol companies, are given basically free rein to do whatever sort of promotion they want. And
Yeah,
now
you can
they're,
advertise at the Super Bowl.
yeah, yeah. And yet with cannabis right now, they're making so many restrictions, as you pointed out, with the packaging. You can't
Right,
really get creative. You can't really make it interesting.
right.
Do you foresee those rules changing moving forward?
I do. You know, it's going to take time. I mean, you got to remember, like, if we lived in Indonesia, they'd behead us for having this conversation,
Right, right.
right? You know, you have to be pragmatic about how the government is going about what they're doing. I don't disagree with the majority of the things they're doing. And I think even the packaging and promotion thing kind of comes from the right place, but it's a strategic error in their core mandate. You know, their core mandate is to displace the black market and, you know, even more importantly, to protect consumer health. So you want to protect consumer health and displace the black market. Well, in order to do that, you got to formulate the product in a way that does protect consumer health. And I think the 10 milligram dose maximum in a unit size is a great way to do that. I think that'll help achieve it. I think you'll never see at 10 milligrams per unit, you won't read of a legal product overdose in Canada it's just not going to happen. Like you
Right,
could never, at 10 milligrams per bottle of wine, do you know how many bottles you'd have to drink within a 15-minute period in order to overdose on my product?
right. Yeah, a lot. Too many.
You'd have to drink 8 bottles of wine
Right.
in order to get up to a threshold of how much cannabis you've consumed that's been recorded in the overdoses that are on record in hospitals across Canada.
Yeah.
You're consuming at least 80 milligrams of THC to have an overdose. That means you'd have to drink 8 bottles of wine, right, which at 750 ml, like you're talking 5 gallons or, you know, 5 liters. Your body can only consume 8 liters of liquid a day,
Right.
right? You're going to consume, you know, 6 liters in 15 minutes. Not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody's ever going to do it. You know how many beer that is, right? That's 40 beer.
Yeah. Not gonna happen.
Not going to happen, right? So, and you got to do it within a 15-minute window to get the full onset effect,
Yeah.
right? Because it goes up and then it wears off.
Right.
So if you're not consuming it all at once, it's impossible to overdose, right? Um, so, you know, I think the fundamental strategic error they made on the branding piece is that consumers need brands to build trust.
Right.
And so that's what we recognize in brands, is that it's a trusted product from a trusted corporation. It's a trusted provider. And so, you know, when we have expectations that come along with those brands, it's why we view Tim Hortons differently than Starbucks, differently than Nespresso. And even though it's the exact same product, the brand has added value through the experience that's created that we come to respect, admire, and trust, right? So I'm willing to pay double for a Nespresso coffee than I am a Starbucks coffee, which costs twice as much as a Tim Hortons coffee,
Sure.
right? So when you look at that value chain, it's the exact same commodity. If you apply that to cannabis, you go, okay, well, it's the brand experience that is going to take the commodity and make it more valuable, right?
Right.
If you don't have the ability to create a brand, then the black market, which has no restrictions, is actually going to beat us
Yeah.
on
That's
the
the
brand
thing, right?
experience, right? It's cheaper and it's more pleasing to the eye because their packaging, if you look at some of the packaging in the black market, it's extraordinarily creative. It's
Yeah.
fun. You know, it's like there's all kinds of great stuff that happens in the black market because they have no rules.
Yeah. Right.
They have no rules. They can do anything they want. So there's caricatures, there's takeoffs on existing brands. There's, because the Hells Angels and the Chinese triads, the organized crime that's behind all of those products, for the most part, like they don't have a QA department and they don't have a legal department that prevents them from, using somebody else's, caricature or identity or all that kind of stuff, right? So we have this huge barrier, and the government has kind of crippled our ability to build those trusted brands, to differentiate on the consumer experience right at the most visceral point, which is, the visceral experience of a brand is touching and feeling it, drinking it, consuming it, looking at it,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So what's going to be the difference between this product and every other legal product? The black market's experience will be perceptually more appealing.
Right.
And then they'll be cheaper.
Yeah. So
So
you think the regulations will eventually have to catch up and allow companies to,
yeah. Otherwise, we won't succeed on the mandate of displacing that black market. And I think, it'll be beneficial for all of Canada when we do that.
Yeah.
Because there's so many hundreds of thousands of people now working in the industry that when you add value to the industry, our standard of living goes up.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Well, thank
Right?
you so much for joining us today, Terry. You've dropped so much knowledge on us. This has been like a great interview. I really appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure.
So,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to put links to the Hill Street Beverage Company below in the video description, so you guys watching out there can go ahead and check out all the great products they have. And
Yep.
thanks again, Terry, and wish you the best moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.